At the very moment he stepped out of the Thousand Zhang Thunder Pool, several cultivators ahead of him who were also competing for the title instinctively retreated. Their eyes, fixed on Wang Lin, were filled with fear. After a brief silence, a surge of shocked murmurs erupted among the surrounding cultivators. Everything that had just occurred far exceeded their expectations. The figure before them, Xun'er, had left a deep and unforgettable impression in the minds of everyone present. Battle of Luo Su at the mortal trial, devouring the thunder spirit at the earthly trial. Such feats are far beyond what ordinary cultivators could achieve. I can't help but wonder what Xun'er will do next at the heavenly trial. That demon path scion Xun'er, he truly is formidable. All the rumors before, I believe them now without a doubt. This man is no ordinary character. Best not provoke him. In this selection of the 108 immortals, he'll definitely be among the top 3. Even the ancient monsters seated on their meditation cushions had their eyes flashing with brilliance. They gazed at Wang Lin with a trace of appreciation. These were the kind of junior cultivators that the Luotian Star Domain needed. Particularly the elder from the Xiang family, he nodded in approval, his admiration for Wang Lin growing stronger. He paid no mind to the Thunder Immortal Palace's losses. All he saw was that this Xun'er had the exact temperament his clan favored, a dangerous aura that clung to him like a killing wind. High above in the sky, the 2 emissaries from the Thunder Immortal Palace were at a loss for words. The drumbeats had long ceased. In their minds, even if Xun'er continued, he would probably shatter the drum itself, and it still wouldn't matter. Now, the 2 exchanged glances and gave a wry smile. Yet when they looked at Wang Lin again, there was no envy, only a glimmer of respect. Wang Lin, oblivious to all this, continued forward beyond the 1,000 zhang mark. He cupped his fist respectfully toward Yin Lazy and said, I lost control for a moment. Senior, please don't take offense. These words were rather reminiscent of his senior brother, Qin Shui. Upon hearing them, immortal monarch Qi Shui couldn't help but smile. Yin Lazy let out a hearty laugh and replied, It's fine. A mere thunder pool and a thunder spirit avatar paving the way for a young powerhouse from our Luotian Star Domain. Worth it. As for the destruction of the thunder pool, just earn more battle merits during future battles in the Alliance Star Domain to make up for it. As he spoke, he extended his right hand and pointed forward. At that moment, heaven and earth seemed to tremble. Endless primordial energy howled forth, condensing before his fingertip, and in an instant, it transformed into a rune. The rune pulsed with vibrant vitality. Wang Lin's pupils contracted. He could clearly sense that within the rune was a faint trace of primordial force. Though it was only a trace, it made the rune incredibly powerful. With a flick of Yin Lazy's fingers, the rune flashed forth and landed amidst the 1,000 zhang ruins. The moment it touched the ground, it dispersed into primordial energy, spreading in all directions. That single thread of primordial force merged within. Into the astonishment of the surrounding cultivators, the shattered bluestone ground began to reassemble, as if time itself were reversing. Even the pieces that had turned to dust and vanished began to rematerialize from the void, reforming into solid stone. In just a blink, everything was restored. The entire 1,000 zhang bluestone platform looked exactly as it once had, only the thunder radiance was gone. Wang Lin gazed at this, seemingly deep in thought. Now comes the final of the 3 trials, Heavenly Trial. Yin Lazy declared, turning toward Lai Yunzi of the Zhan family. He smiled and said, Daoist Lai Yunzi, please. Lai Yunzi raised his right hand and grasped at the air. A rift instantly tore open before him, icy winds billowing out. He reached into the rift and pulled out a scroll. The scroll was ancient, emanating an aura of time-worn dignity. With a flick of his wrist, he flung the scroll forward. As it floated in midair, a dark radiance flashed across it, and it slowly unfurled, revealing a white canvas. On that canvas, just one word. Battle. Though it was only a single character, it radiated a terrifying killing intent. Anyone who laid eyes on it would feel as if they had stepped into a battlefield of carnage. The Zhan family's treasured artifact, the battle calligraphy. One of the 10 great magical artifacts of the Luotian Star Domain. The battle calligraphy, normally only visible to members of the Zhan family. We're truly witnessing a rare moment. It was this artifact, according to legend, that caused the Zhan family to change their surname. Their ancestors weren't originally named Zhan, but after acquiring this battle calligraphy and mastering it through arduous cultivation, they changed their name to Zhan and founded the Luotian war clan. As discussions buzzed through the crowd, Lai Yunzi remained composed. He said calmly, the heavenly trial will be hosted by me. With that, he waved his right hand casually. A gentle breeze swept through the area, and dozens of cultivators who had participated in the title competition suddenly found themselves powerless to resist. They were lifted off the ground and sent flying into the teleportation array above. As the array flashed, they vanished. All of those sent away had been the first to falter during the second trial. Now, only 147 remained. The heavenly trial is right under my battle calligraphy. Meditate for 10 breaths. After 10 breaths, without uttering a word, I will know whether you are qualified. Lai Yunzi's words left the surrounding cultivators somewhat confused, but his fearsome reputation quickly silenced everyone. Zhang Konglai, you go first. Lai Yunzi glanced at Zhang Konglai and said slowly, obeying the ancestor's command. Zhang Konglai took a deep breath, stepping forward and placing his foot on the newly formed bluestone. He raised his head and stared at the unmoving battle calligraphy in midair, his whole being seeming to fall into an unusual conceptual realm, as if drawn in by the calligraphy. Wang Lin focused on Zhang Konglai, and after a moment, his expression became serious. Zhang Konglai stood there, and at the 8th breath, it seemed like his divine sense split in two. One part merged with the battle calligraphy. In that instant, an extremely faint, almost 100 times weaker than Yin Lazy's primordial force, emanated from the calligraphy and flowed into Zhang Konglia's body. But at the 10th breath, it collapsed, as if Zhang Konglia's body could not contain even that tiny sliver of primordial force. This change was nearly imperceptible to ordinary cultivators. If Wang Lin hadn't seen the third step within the heavenly reversal pearl, he would have never been able to discern it. But in this moment, what he saw shook his heart profoundly. There is primordial force within that battle calligraphy? Wang Lin gasped. Zhang Konglai, qualified. Lai Yunzi's voice was calm as he spoke slowly. As soon as these words were spoken, Zhang Konglai immediately woke from his strange state. Sweat drenched his body, and his face turned pale. He took several deep breaths, feeling as though he had just fought a fierce battle. He staggered back a few steps, respectfully cupped his fists, and stepped off the bluestone. The surrounding cultivators, especially those competing for titles, were left puzzled. Very few of them understood the mystery behind Zhang Konglia's ease in passing the trial. Their thoughts were varied. Next, one after another, cultivators stepped onto the bluestone and looked up at the battle calligraphy. Dozens of cultivators attempted, but 8 of them were immediately swept into the teleportation array by Lai Yunzi's sweeping sleeve. At this point, the cultivators surrounding the area were even more confused. They couldn't understand how Lai Yunzi evaluated this third trial. Wang Lin's expression grew increasingly serious. All the cultivators who were eliminated had failed to merge their divine sense with the battle calligraphy. It seemed that the word battle within had its own soul, and whether or not it accepted them seemed to have a mysterious judgment. Lai Yunzi used this as the basis for evaluating the heavenly trial. Those who were qualified, like Zhang Konglai, had their divine sense accepted by the word battle and merged with it. Similarly, a faint primordial force surged forth, but none of them could retain that force within their bodies. Another observation Wang Lin made was that those who passed the trial were mostly able to merge with the calligraphy on the 9th or final breath. It was rare, like Zhang Konglai, for someone to merge by the 8th breath. Su Ting's eyes flashed. It seemed he also noticed some clues but wasn't entirely sure. After a brief pause, he stepped forward as the previous cultivator finished their trial, entered the bluestone area, and gazed up at the battle calligraphy. Lai Yunzi glanced at Su Ting. He had some impression of this junior and nodded without speaking. Su Ting's expression was serious as he stared at the calligraphy. His eyes gleamed with a strange light, and a swirl of black mist appeared at his brow, rotating rapidly around his head. By the 5th breath, his whole being suddenly dispersed a strand of divine sense, which was immediately absorbed by the battle calligraphy. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed. In his heart, he murmured, the 5th breath. This person doesn't have the same opportunity one did, but he can settle by the 5th breath. His talent is truly astonishing. Lai Yunzi's eyes shone brightly. At this moment, he seemed completely focused, staring at Su Ting and secretly nodding. In the Zhan family, there were fewer than 10 people who could settle by the 5th breath. These individuals had all been cultivating under the battle calligraphy for a long time, gradually reaching the ability to settle by the 5th breath. As for someone settling this quickly upon seeing the battle calligraphy for the first time, there were only 3 in the entire Zhan family. This child is extraordinary. Lai Yunzi's eyes revealed rare admiration. Not only Lai Yunzi, but the other ancient monsters sitting on the meditation cushions also saw the underlying clues. They understood that the treasure of the Zhan family contained a strange power. The quicker one could enter a settled state, the more they could accept the inheritance of this power. However, very few among them knew that this power was the key to the elusive third step they had been searching for. Yanlazy's eyes gleamed with a strange light. He didn't look at the battle calligraphy, but instead focused on Su Ting, contemplating in his heart, this person has the potential. 10 breaths later, Su Ting suddenly woke up. At this moment, a subtle flash of light appeared in Wang Lin's eyes, barely noticeable. He could tell that within Su Ting's body, a faint trace of primordial power that had flowed from the battle calligraphy had, surprisingly retained a small portion inside Su Ting. This discovery shook Wang Lin to his core. He knew exactly the significance of primordial power. Perhaps Su Ting wouldn't notice anything in the short term, but once his cultivation reached the peak of the second step, this trace of primordial power would have unimaginable effects on him. This Su Ting of Dong Lin Star harbors hidden animosity toward me. This person cannot be left alive. Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged, but a murderous intent began to form in his heart. Su Ting had shown him killing intent more than once, and Wang Lin, with his personality, could never allow someone to keep even a trace of primordial power. Su Ting qualified. Lai Yunzi, however, remembered Su Ting's name, nodded at him, and after a brief pause, added, "The battle calligraphy contains 3 pieces. After opening the passage to the Alliance Star Domain, you may come find me. I will show you the second piece." As soon as these words were spoken, many cultivators around couldn't help but feel a surge of jealousy, although they didn't let it show on their faces. Su Ting glanced at Lai Yunzi. With his domineering nature, he too respectfully cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Senior Lai Yunzi." Even Zhang Konglai felt a tinge of sourness in his heart. He knew that only a handful of members from his family were qualified to see the second piece, and as for the third, only the Patriarch and 2 elders had ever seen it. Su Ting nodded respectfully, stepping aside, his gaze dark and fixed on Wang Lin. Wang Lin met his gaze coldly, then lifted his foot and walked toward the 1,000-foot green stone. Just behind Su Ting, a cultivator named Zhao Dao, who had been about to step onto the stone, immediately retreated upon seeing Wang Lin's actions, an awkward expression crossing his face. This was the same Zhao Dao whom Wang Lin had fought during the battle with Luo Su. Although Luo Su had struck him down, Wang Lin had effortlessly swept him away with a flick of his sleeve. At this moment, Zhao Dao could only curse his bad luck and quickly step back. As soon as Wang Lin moved, the surrounding cultivators immediately took notice. After all, Wang Lin's reputation had spread far and wide, especially after his battles during the mortal trial with Luo Su and the earthly trial where he devoured the Thunder Spirit. All the cultivators were eager to see how Su Mu would perform in this third trial. The anticipation was thick in the air. Even the ancestors of some cultivation families turned their attention toward him, remembering both Su Mu's name and Wang Lin's appearance. Among them were the ancient monsters who stood at the pinnacle of the Luo Tian Star Domain. Each of them looked on with smiles. Only the Blood God, with a cold snort in his heart, pondered for a moment before also focusing his gaze on Wang Lin. Yanlazy inwardly chuckled. He had a headache dealing with Wang Lin. This young man, despite his brashness, was fated to cross paths with him. Moreover, his ties with Qin Shui made it hard to deal with him harshly. The losses from the mortal and earthly trials had been significant for Thunder Immortal Palace, but with the third trial controlled by Lai Yunzi, any mishap would cost him, not Lai Yunzi. Now, he waited with slight expectation as he watched Wang Lin. Wang Lin stepped onto the 1,000-foot green stone, cupped his fist toward Lai Yunzi, and then looked up at the battle calligraphy floating in midair. At this moment, it seemed as if a delusion had appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. It felt as if the entire world before him suddenly collapsed and disintegrated. Everything, the 1,000-foot green stone, the surrounding cultivators, even Thunder Immortal Palace, vanished. The only thing that remained was the character battle. Wang Lin felt a tremor throughout his body, and immediately, he fell into a daze, as if a powerful force suddenly erupted from the character battle, shaking his very soul. In an instant, it seemed to tear apart his mind and body, leaving no connection between the two. The overwhelming killing intent permeated the air, and Wang Lin felt as if he were a mortal standing in the coldest winter, without a single piece of clothing. The chilling cold seemed ready to snuff out his life force. In that instant, Wang Lin, in his dazed state, seemed to return to the time when the heavenly reversal pearl had reached completion. The gate of heaven and earth had manifested, and in that moment when it opened, a surge of primordial power had erupted. His third eye on his forehead instantly manifested, slowly opening. However, no red glow emerged. At this moment, Wang Lin remained motionless, but his heart and mind trembled violently, as if the sensation of facing the gate of heaven and earth all those years ago was once again reverberating through him. But compared to that time, this sensation was far weaker. Back then, Wang Lin had nearly collapsed from just a glance, while now, despite the shock, he could endure it. Clearly, the primordial power contained in the character Battle was far less complex than that of the heavenly reversal. For Wang Lin, the heavenly reversal was far too mysterious, while the character Battle was something he could attempt to understand. This is a long story, but in reality, it all happened in the instant when Wang Lin looked up. Time barely took a breath. Originally, Lai Yunzi didn't think much of Wang Lin. To him, Sumu could battle Luo Su, and although his divine abilities were impressive, without the intervention of Qin Shui, in the end, Sumu would surely be defeated. As for the second trial, where Sumu swallowed the Thunder Spirit, it was pure coincidence. In general, luck played a huge part. Lai Yunzi had walked his path of cultivation relying solely on his own strength, and the people who depended on luck were the ones he looked down on the most. To him, Sumu was one such person. However, in this moment, his eyes burst with an unimaginable brilliance, and his entire body stepped forward 3 paces, staring intently at Wang Lin, as if a voice was roaring in his mind. One breath. This Sumu actually entered meditation in just one breath. Even with Lai Yunzi's composure, he was shaken. For generations, no one in the Zhan family had ever entered meditation in one breath. Even their most talented ancestors took 2 breaths. At this moment, Lai Yunzi had already erased his earlier impression of Su Ting from his mind, replacing it completely with Wang Lin. It wasn't just him. The ancient monsters sitting on the cushions around him were also shocked. Like Lai Yunzi, they hadn't paid much attention to Wang Lin in the previous 2 trials, thinking them simply interesting. But now, they all began to take him seriously. The blood god's eyes suddenly narrowed as he stared at Wang Lin. Along with his shock, a murderous intent began to rise. This kid actually entered meditation in one breath. He must not be allowed to live. As he thought this, he immediately felt a killing intent locking onto him. Turning around, he saw Qin Shui coldly looking at him. The blood god sneered, suppressing the murderous intent deep in his heart. Except for the blood god, all the other ancestors of the cultivation families, who had inherited their legacies from the immortal realm, were staring intently. The patriarch of the Xiang family looked at Wang Lin with increasing admiration. The more he looked, the more he liked him, thinking to himself, this kid is no ordinary person. Yan Lazy's smile widened, watching the shocked Lai Yunzi, his grin growing more intense. Zhan Kong Lai, knowing the affairs of his family, couldn't help but gasp when he saw Wang Lin enter meditation in a single breath. He froze, remembering the past. As for Su Ting, his brow furrowed, his emotions were complicated. He was once a favored child of heaven, but now, in the mortal trial, all the attention had been stolen by Sumu. The earthly trial was far less impressive, and now, in the heavenly trial, though Lai Yunzi praised him, everything seemed to evaporate in an instant. It was as if Sumu was his natural nemesis. Wang Lin divided his mind, one half merging with the character for Battle, immediately sensing a trace of primordial energy flowing slowly into his body. It revolved for a moment, and just as he was about to withdraw, it froze. The primordial energy, with astonishing speed, rushed straight toward the center of his brow. It fused into his third eye, and instantly, the red glow in his third eye exploded into brilliance. As the primordial energy surged, the red light from Wang Lin's third eye became nearly blinding. In the blink of an eye, 10 breaths passed. When the 10th breath ended, Wang Lin awoke, and the red light in his third eye exploded, spreading in a fan-shaped burst. The red glow flashed, and those nearby who witnessed the scene immediately gasped. The fan-shaped red light spread, enveloping the entire scroll of the battle character. In a daze, Wang Lin seemed to glimpse a strange scene on the scroll. It was a distant starry sky, where an old man in white robes traced the air with his right index finger, immediately writing the character for Battle. The character then split into 6 parts, transforming into 6 lucky scrolls. A strong aura of primordial energy emanated from the old man, and he looked up at the sky with a sense of melancholy, regret, and unwillingness, before lifting his head to gaze at the stars. His eyes displayed an expression of disbelief. Wang Lin's body shook, and the red light from his third eye disappeared. He regained his clarity, realizing that the scene he had just seen was the result of a connection he made with the scroll, using the divine power of his third eye. It seemed like an illusion, but it was so vivid and real. As the red light faded, Wang Lin's third eye gradually contracted, but it didn't disappear. Instead, it seemed to become eternal, transforming into a red line that remained fixed in the center of his brow. At that moment, Wang Lin appeared to possess a strange aura. Did you see that? Lai Yunzi stepped forward and arrived in front of Wang Lin in an instant, staring at him with a tone full of excitement. Wang Lin remained silent, nodding slightly. He could clearly feel a terrifying force hidden in the red line in his brow, and it now seemed to pulse with a sharp pain, as if the force within was unwilling to stay dormant and was on the verge of exploding. Lai Yunzi stared at Wang Lin for a long time before breaking into a laugh. Good, Sumu, after the immortal ascension, come to find me. I'll show you the remaining 2 battle scrolls. Lai Yunzi let out a hearty laugh, took a careful glance at Wang Lin, and with a flick of his sleeve, summoned a person from the outer edge of the Azure Stone, continuing with the trial of the Heavenly Trial. Wang Lin turned and walked outside. Once he stepped beyond the 1,000-foot Azure Stone, he sat cross-legged on a patch of open ground. Ignoring the gazes of the surrounding cultivators, he meditated in silence. During his breathing exercises, he could clearly feel a sharp pain in the center of his forehead, a sensation that seemed uncontrollable. A sudden realization emerged in his heart. His third eye had absorbed the primordial force, causing an incredible transformation. Whether this change was good or bad, Wang Lin could not yet determine. However, one thing was certain: if he allowed the pain in his forehead to continue, and if the power within burst out of his body uncontrollably, he would surely suffer backlash. He took a deep breath, focused his mind, and began to form the Annihilation Heart seal within his body. With each imprint, it gradually became 3 sealing marks that locked the power in his third eye. Still, the force in his third eye was too powerful. This seal could only temporarily alleviate the pressure. To maintain it, he would need to reinforce it every so often. Despite this, Wang Lin did not find it troublesome. No matter what, the power within this third eye will be my ultimate trump card for survival in the future. After Wang Lin, other cultivators proceeded with the third trial. In just 2 incense sticks, all cultivators had completed the test. Lai Yunzi waved his right hand, and the battle calligraphy scroll fell into his grasp. As he turned, a gust of wind erupted from his body, sweeping across the surroundings. Those who had failed the test were immediately sent into the sky's teleportation array and left. Out of the original 147, only 112 remained. As Lai Yunzi returned to his meditation cushion, Yin Lazy's gaze swept over the remaining 112 cultivators. His eyes burned with intensity as he slowly spoke. Having passed the 3 trials, those who remain are the elite of the younger generation in our Luotian star domain. Next, the original test was to enter the 6 paths of reincarnation to test your Dao heart. However, since your numbers have thinned, the 6 paths trial is cancelled. You will directly enter the first step of the One-Line Sky trial. The One-Line Sky is the final test for Immortal Conferment. The highest achiever will become the first among the 108 Immortals, while the top 36 will be named Celestial Guardians. In this One-Line Sky trial, you will enter as ethereal bodies. Even if you die, it will only cause slight harm to your physical body and won't have much of an effect. After Yin Lazy finished speaking, he slapped his storage pouch, and an octagonal wooden slab appeared in his hand. As he tossed it into the air, the slab rapidly expanded, soon reaching a size of over 10 meters, radiating colorful light and spiraling in the sky above. Enter the 1,000-foot Azure Stone. Yin Lazy called out, and the 112 cultivators immediately moved into the Azure Stone ground, sitting cross-legged. With another wave of Yin Lazy's hand, the colorful light from the octagonal wooden slab suddenly spread out, landing on each of the 120 cultivators' bodies. In that instant, as the light integrated into their bodies, all the cultivators, including Wang Lin, felt a jolt through their minds and lost consciousness. They found themselves in a dense forest, where towering trees stretched high above, their endless branches and leaves intertwining to form a vast net, separating the ground from the sky. Only faint gaps allowed the sunlight to pierce through, forming beams of light that looked like celestial rays descending from the heavens, an awe-inspiring sight. The ground was covered in decaying leaves, with poisonous insects wriggling and hiding from the light beams, creating a shocking scene. The surroundings were far from silent, as the rustling of leaves and the hissing of the creeping insects filled the air. Occasionally, a distant, spine-chilling roar echoed through the forest. At that moment, a flash of multicolored light appeared within a massive tree. In that light, Wang Lin's figure materialized. The instant he appeared, he leapt onto a nearby branch, his eyes flashing like lightning. Using his heart seal technique, he immediately suppressed all his auras. Having endured countless life or death trials, this so-called one-line sky was nothing compared to the demon spirit land in his eyes. After appearing, he naturally avoided the mistake of immediately dispersing his divine sense. Just then, a divine sense swept in from afar. It didn't stop around Wang Lin but continued to spread outward. However, in the next instant, the divine sense suddenly recoiled in panic, retracting rapidly. Within a moment, the divine sense collapsed, and a distant scream faintly echoed. Wang Lin's gaze flickered. This place, without absolute strength, one cannot disperse their divine sense. If one does, their position will immediately be detected, which will lead to a deadly pursuit. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, circulating his primordial energy as he examined his body. After a quick look, he discovered something unsettling. It was indeed as Yin Lazy had said. What existed here was something akin to a clone. While everything seemed identical to his real body, death here would have minimal impact on his true form. There won't be a true death in this land of slaughter, the threat of heaven, but it will surely force many cultivators with little experience to undergo a life and death test. Perhaps this is the true purpose of the Thunder Immortal Palace, to cultivate real cultivators. Wang Lin furrowed his brow and tried to channel the heaven and earth shrinking step, but the technique had no effect here, for this wasn't a true heaven and earth. While lost in thought, his body suddenly flickered and transformed into a wisp of smoke, vanishing in place. The three trials, heaven, earth, and mortal, are only assessments. Only this thread of heaven is the real contest for titles. Here, there's no concept of good or evil. To claim the first spot, one must gain the most kills. As Wang Lin moved, a cold light flashed in his eyes. At that moment, a divine sense appeared in the distance, sweeping through the surroundings. Wang Lin's gaze sharpened, and he immediately shot into the air. His speed was so fast that within a split second, he saw the cultivator emitting the divine sense. It was Xiaodao, the cultivator who had been interrupted by Wang Lin's actions twice during his trials. He had just appeared and seemed confused by his surroundings. Having been trained under the family's cultivation method, he unconsciously spread his divine sense to observe, but the moment he did, a strong sense of danger surged toward him, making his face go pale. He immediately realized his mistake. He was about to flee when suddenly, a black mist roared behind him, carrying a thick aura of murderous intent. It came in the blink of an eye and engulfed Xiaodao's fleeing form. A scream echoed as Wang Lin halted, standing 100 zhang away, coldly watching the black mist. The mist writhed, as if it had devoured Xiaodao's entire body, flesh and bone. After a moment, someone emerged from the mist. It was Su Ting. He licked his lips and stared at Wang Lin. The two locked eyes from 100 zhang apart, their gazes clashing with a resounding force. How about we leave our fight for last? Su Ting spoke coldly. He harbored deep caution toward Wang Lin and, unless absolutely necessary, didn't wish to provoke him. His voice was filled with an eerie tone. Wang Lin gave Su Ting a cold glance before turning away. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. At this moment, killing Su Ting was secondary. What mattered most was accumulating enough kills. Su Ting breathed a sigh of relief, retreating and blending into the mist, quickly leaving from another direction. It was as though the place had become a boundary, dividing the two without interference. Wang Lin didn't bother searching for others. Instead, he found a large tree, sat cross-legged, and spread his divine sense to sweep across the land. The moment his divine sense spread, more than 10 cultivators immediately unleashed their divine senses, heading straight for Wang Lin. Here, if you don't kill others, others will come to kill you. Sitting cross-legged, Wang Lin opened his mouth and released an object, his immortal sealing seal. The small square seal floated in front of him, emitting waves of golden light. Years ago, 2 of the hundreds of thousands of runes on it sealed a cultivator's divine soul. Its power is different. I wonder if it can seal a split spirit here in this illusory realm. Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he waited for the first person to meet their end. After several moments, a figure shot out from the right side forest like a streak of lightning. But as it neared within 100 zhang, the figure suddenly shook, realizing that the person it had intended to hunt down was Wang Lin. Its eyes immediately filled with horror, and without hesitation, it attempted to flee. Wang Lin's expression remained calm as always. When the cultivator approached, the immortal sealing seal shot out, moving so fast that it almost instantly caught up with the fleeing figure. The cultivator, in panic, formed hand seals, summoning divine arts, but these attacks had no effect on the immortal sealing seal. In an instant, the seal grew larger and slammed down with a powerful thud. At the same time, Numerous golden runes spread out, sealing off all of the cultivator's escape routes. Despair filled the cultivator's eyes as he tapped his storage pouch, releasing over 100 flying swords in an attempt to resist. But with a series of thunderous sounds, the flying swords all shattered. The immortal sealing seal landed with a resounding boom, and a pained groan echoed out. As the cultivator vanished, a golden rune flickered and merged into his dissipating form. Moments later, this rune filled with spiritual energy and entered the immortal sealing seal. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed as he recalled the immortal sealing seal, observing it carefully before slowly raising his head to gaze at the distant forest. Calmly, he said, "How long do you plan on waiting to strike?" The forest ahead was silent for a moment. Then, 4 figures emerged. All of them were at the young fulfillment stage, standing together, forming an aura that seemed to vaguely challenge Wang Lin's strength. The 4 of them exchanged glances. One of them narrowed his eyes with a flash of coldness and immediately slapped his storage pouch. A gourd appeared in his hand. With a gesture from his right hand, the gourd spouted a burst of crimson flame, shooting straight toward Wang Lin. Another person opened his mouth and spat out a black pearl, emitting a strong, foul wind, rapidly closing in on Wang Lin. The last cultivator formed hand seals, and instantly, over 100 puppets materialized, filling the air and attacking Wang Lin. However, at that very moment, the cultivator who had first released the magical artifact gourd suddenly flashed his eyes, retreating at once. But as he did, the other 3 followed suit, all swiftly retreating. The 4 of them raced away in 4 different directions. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and his immortal sealing seal immediately appeared in front of him. All the incoming attacks shattered under the immense force of the seal, which then shot toward one of the attackers. With a loud bang, the immortal sealing seal pressed down, swiftly shifting and then charging toward another. Hundreds of thousands of golden runes spread across the sky, and among them, 4 special runes glowed with life. Wang Lin focused on the 4 golden runes amidst the others, his eyes flickering as a bold thought flashed in his mind. What if I combine the soul banner with the immortal sealing seal? Wang Lin's heart raced. A thunderous roar echoed through the air, and after a moment, the immortal sealing seal returned. The number of runes filled with life had increased from 4 to 7. Grabbing the immortal sealing seal, Wang Lin's body swayed, and he vanished without a trace. Xun'er's face turned pale as he rapidly fled through the forest. The moment he appeared, a killing intent locked onto him. If it hadn't been for his quick reflexes, he would have been obliterated the instant he showed up. Even so, he was still wounded during his escape. His face was devoid of color as he hurried away, with the large-headed boy rapidly chasing after him. The boy's foolish grin never faded, and he locked his eyes on Xun'er, the smile turning cold. He raised his right hand, and a purple light flashed. He threw it forward, and the light instantly transformed into a several-meter-long purple ant. The ant was terrifying, and upon materializing, it let out a roar. Its massive pincers lunged forward with incredible speed, easily outpacing Xun'er, and clamped down hard. The large-headed boy's smile grew even colder. It seemed as though he could already see that the cultivator ahead would be torn apart by the netherworld ant that he had raised. Too bad I can't open my storage pouch here. Otherwise, I could just use a magical artifact to capture his soul and wouldn't need to release the netherworld ant, the large-headed boy muttered to himself. In the moment of crisis, a gleam of light flashed in Xun'er's eyes. He turned around and, opening his mouth, fired a thunder orb the size of a fist toward the approaching ant. As soon as the thunder orb was released, a thunderous roar echoed, heading straight for the ant. However, the difference in cultivation was too great. The instant the thunder orb neared the ant, it was pinched by the ant's pincers and immediately exploded with a loud crash. The massive ant paid no attention to the explosion and charged forward, its pincers releasing a cold aura as it drew near Xun'er, clamping down hard. Xun'er let out a bitter laugh. From the moment he arrived until now, his survival had been a matter of mere minutes. He hadn't even made any notable contributions to the battle and was already on the verge of retreating from the battlefield. But just as this thought crossed his mind, a sudden flash of joy appeared in Xun'er's eyes. He sensed a familiar aura rapidly approaching. Suddenly, golden light filled the sky, and a cold voice echoed across the heavens. Seal. The moment the word was spoken, golden runes immediately condensed in the air, enveloping Xun'er in an instant. With a loud bang, the ant's pincers were trapped by the golden runes. The golden symbols flashed, merging into a golden runestorm, sweeping across the sky. The netherworld ant trembled and quickly retreated. The large-headed boy's foolish grin immediately froze. His expression darkened as he stared ahead, no longer hesitating, and began retreating. From the forest behind Xun'er, Wang Lin stepped forward, the immortal sealing seal floating in front of him, radiating a soft golden light. "Master!" Xun'er's face showed a fanatical respect. Wang Lin gave a slight nod and glanced coldly at the retreating large-headed boy. Trying to run? His body moved, crossing several dozen meters in a single step. The immortal sealing seal howled as it shot forward. The large-headed boy's cultivation was at the early glimpse of Nirvana stage, just like Wang Lin. He had witnessed Wang Lin's rise through the three trials of heaven, earth, and man, and was deeply fearful of him, not daring to provoke him at all. "Sumu, my friend, I'm leaving here. Why go so far as to exterminate completely? Our cultivation levels are similar, and even if you win in a fight, you'll be injured. Don't give Su Ting the chance." The silly smile on the big-headed boy's face had long since disappeared. At this moment, he hurriedly shouted. Wang Lin's eyes turned cold. As he stepped forward, his right hand rose, and the severing Luo art instantly merged into him. With a powerful slash, the big-headed boy's expression changed dramatically. As he retreated, the netherworld ants he summoned roared, blocking his path. Just as the severing Luo art was about to hit, they were instantly obliterated. The immortal sealing seal flashed, and a golden symbol dropped onto the collapsing netherworld ant. A golden light flashed, and the symbol instantly gained a spiritual essence. The big-headed boy's face turned pale. As he quickly retreated, he formed seals with his hands and growled fiercely, "Immortal art, encompass." As soon as he spoke, ripples spread from around him. The surrounding world immediately transformed, and one beast after another, each more ferocious than the last, materialized, all roaring with murderous intent, charging toward Wang Lin. "Let's see if I can test Su's mastery of the authority of thunder on you." Wang Lin's voice, cold as winter's wind, reached the big-headed boy's ears, making his body tremble. Recalling the scene inside the earthly trial, where the other party devoured the thunder spirit's essence spirit, the big-headed boy's heart filled with bitterness. He hastily performed a divine ability and quickly retreated. In Wang Lin's eyes, a sudden change occurred. A terrifying intent of thunder surged, brewing fiercely between his eyes. "This thunder of heaven and earth, it's all under my control." Wang Lin didn't look at the big-headed boy. Instead, he raised his head and gazed at the sky. In an instant, the primordial thunder dragon's essence spirit burst forth from the center of his brow, roaring toward the heavens. Roar! The thunder dragon's furious roar, wielding the authority of thunder, reverberated across the world once again. This roar sounded as though it were splitting the heavens apart, and as the thunderous sound echoed out, it created a wave that shook every cultivator in the slaughter battlefield to their core. In that instant, the entire slaughter battlefield trembled as if struck by an earthquake, the world flipping upside down, the sun and moon thrown into disarray. Su Ting, who had been merging with the black mist and chasing a fleeing cultivator with a savage grin, was about to devour him when, suddenly, he heard the ancient roar of thunder. He felt the violent tremor of the slaughter battlefield. The black mist surrounding his body exploded with a loud bang, forcing him out of the mist. His face paled in shock as he stared at the distance. The fleeing cultivator ahead spat out a mouthful of blood, his face drained white, as if the sky was collapsing. He was crushed to the ground by the thunderous roar. His body collapsed under the weight of the sound. In the forest, the six-fingered cultivator hiding within a towering tree, waiting for passing cultivators, had been planning to ambush them. However, in that moment, as the thunderous sound echoed across the world, his face turned deathly pale. It felt as if something had surged into his soul, forcing him out of hiding. Filled with dread, he stared at the distance. This is the roar that Sumu released in the earthly trial. Zhang Konglai, moving through the forest, also heard the roar. His body shuddered, and he immediately sat down cross-legged, practicing breathing to resist it. After a moment, his eyes lit up, and a look of ecstasy spread across his face. He hurried toward the source of the roar. At that moment, every cultivator in the slaughter battlefield felt the terrifying thunderous sound. It felt as if the very heavens and earth were about to collapse under it, especially in the sky, where the thunder suddenly transformed. Massive thunderbolts, the size of several meters, flickered like electric dragons, converging towards the distance. The earth trembled violently, as if it were the end of the world. Not only in the slaughter battlefield, but outside, in the Thunder Immortal Palace, the eight-sided wooden slab high above the 1,000-foot green stone began to tremble. Lightning appeared out of nowhere, flashing along its surface, and in the sky, vast thunderbolts began to form, as if the very thunder of this world had been summoned, all approaching to pay homage. Yin Lazy suddenly stood up, staring at the 8-sided wooden slab, his face darkening. He formed seals with his hands, and immediately cast countless seals, gradually stopping the trembling of the wooden slab. At this moment, the cultivators watching around were filled with various speculations. After the roar, the primordial thunder dragon's essence spirit in Wang Lin's brow returned to his body. Around Wang Lin, endless lightning gathered, and the area within 1,000 miles became a thunderpool hell. With a series of crashing sounds, towering trees collapsed, turning into fireballs that soared into the sky. Wang Lin's eyes now radiated with intense lightning. Countless bolts of thunder danced around his body. He felt as though he was the master of all thunder. Raising his right hand, Wang Lin pointed toward the big-headed boy, who was desperately fleeing, almost losing his soul. Thunder, annihilate. The thunderous roar reverberated through the heavens as a single finger of Wang Lin pointed. Around him, all the lightning surged violently, charging directly toward the big-headed boy. If seen from the sky, one would witness the vast thunderpool, contracting in an instant, with its center focused on the big-headed boy. The speed of this contraction was so rapid that in the blink of an eye, it violently condensed. A look of despair appeared in the big-headed boy's eyes, as if he were facing all the thunder in the world. The moment this despair appeared, the thunder within a 1,000-mile radius fused into him. With a resounding boom, the entire slaughter battlefield trembled again. The big-headed boy's body turned into a ball of flame, soaring into the air, leaving not a trace behind.